It's just a huge honor for me to be podcast interviewing my neighbor right here in Phoenix. I'm in Phoenix, where all the poor people live. He's over in Chandler, where all the rich people hang out. His name is Shawn Zajas. He's the founder of Zana. And the website is My Zanna, and it's really, really cool. He's also the co-founder of The Authentic Dentist with Allison House, another dentist up the street. She's in Scottsdale, right?
She is, yep, right by the Biltmore.
Now, is that richer than Chandler? So it's like me, then a step up to Chandler, then another step up to Allison?
So you're not in Phoenix. You're in Ahwatukee. And Ahwatukee is a very nice area.
But it's Phoenix, baby. Ahwatukee is Phoenix. So so let me read his intro. Shawn, father Paul started a dental supply company in 97. So he had been attending trade shows, working the booth since he was in middle school. Then he was the director of marketing for Z Dental. And through one thing or another, he got high tech, and now he's the founder of Zana, which is an electric toothbrush program redefined. By equipping your practice with your own office care program to get your patients coming back predictably and consistently by offering them a premium electric toothbrush and free toothbrush head replacement for life. It's an emerging, there's so many reasons I wanted to bring you on the show. My gosh, you're also the founder of Root Cause. We run with the same people. Shout out to Chris Volchek. What can you say to embarrass Chris Volchek? I mean, come on. He's from Globe. He's from Globe. He's got to be the poorest. That's below Phoenix.
I don't know what to say to embarrass him. All I have to say is that I literally was on the edge of like giving up on staying in dentistry and serving dentists. And then I met him and Dr. House, and they are just the most inspiring people. So I credit them for why I'm still here trying to come alongside and help dentistry out.
Well, you know, my four boys, they always say to this day, they're 24, 26, 28, and 30. They always say they love Dad's friends. He said, all Dad's friends are dentists. They're all big readers. He said, if you go over to a dentist's house, it's 100 books that aren't fiction. And when they were growing up in Desert Vista, where you went, they would say that if you go over to spend the night in someone's house and they're not a dentist, a physician, or a lawyer, there's no library. And he said, all of Dad's friends, you'd be out there fishing, but they just knew stuff about everything, and they just thought they were always so nice. And I think that it's a different person that goes to school 8 years to work with their hands and fix your broken tooth, jaw, whatever, than say someone who goes to school and wants to be a lawyer. I mean, it's a different. I mean, there's overlap in everything, but dentists are just cool. I've always loved dentists. They're always smart. They're always well-read. And yeah, some of them have big egos because the stakes are so low. If you...
But we have to add, dentists are also slightly insane because I don't know if they just didn't know what they were signing up for, because to have to maintain the clinical excellence and also be a small business owner and like an entrepreneur, to function in both of those realities at the same time, I can't think of, like, MDs don't have to do that.
It's being corrected right in front of your eyes. I mean, the independent practice, I graduated in 87, 32 years ago. The percent of independent practice has been going down every year. As DSOs go up, I mean, you got to fix pool. So as DSOs expand, and they're expanding huge. I mean, Orthodontic Centers of America did an IPO 2 years before I graduated. They were on the New York Stock Exchange buying up orthodontic centers. They even started their own dental schools. They started 3 orthodontic programs just to get another 35 employees a year. So them not being good businessmen is self-correcting in front of their face. And then when they go become an employee, now more than ever, they're starting to realize, I don't want that. I want to work for myself, because all humans don't like to take orders. All humans want to be their own king of their own house. And once you start telling dentists, you got to do this and you got to do that, that now they're looking at starting their own business more than ever because they don't want to be someone's employee.
Well, so I was at dinner with the dentist that just got her license 2 weeks ago. So she's looking for a practice. And I was asking her, I was like, well, what is the general sentiment of those graduating? And she's like, oh, none of us think we're going to own our own practice. And I was like, why? She's like, I don't know. And I was asking them, I was like, well, what resources are you already connected to help you on the business side of dentistry once you, get in a practice? And she's like, well, we didn't learn any yet. But it was like so naive, like to think like she's not thinking about, oh, I'm going to need to know business. Like, I don't understand that at all. Like, I think you're right, to function and thrive today in the new era of dentistry, man, you've got to know, you almost have to have like an MBA, which is probably why you having the foresight, you decided to get yours.
Yeah, I got my MBA, but some of the data you look at, you have to accept it. When I see dentists look at data and they have a model of how they see it, but it doesn't even incorporate their own data you're looking at. I mean, if this is happening, you have to incorporate that into the data. And my gosh, when you look at these young kids that come out of school, when they start working for someone else, they get a different job every year. I mean, if they're 5 years out of school, they've worked for at least 5 people, maybe 6, maybe 7. So if they're happy, they sure don't show it. I mean, the key to happiness, I mean, you wouldn't change wives every year. You wouldn't take your kids back to the orphanage and switch them out every year. I mean, if you really like something, you do it a long time. How many years did you wrestle?
Well, I only wrestled in middle school, so I wrestled 3 years, but I didn't stop wrestling just because I went toward running. Like in college, I was wrestling friends all the time. Like I wrestled someone 2 years ago in my backyard just because someone challenged me. I was like, let's throw it out. Like once a wrestler, always a wrestler. And yeah, I do it because I love it.
Well, you only switched to running because the police were behind you with their sirens going, and you had to learn to run.
Them, I decided to run away.
But the bottom line, you stayed with wrestling for 3 years. None of those graduates will stay with their first job for 2 years. And so when they tell me they're happy, I'm like, okay, well, how come you've worked for 5 different people, and and whoever they work for? Oh, they're like, they got a list this long of. I mean, they're never gonna be happy. In fact, what I see is the only most of them, and they're some of the best employees I've ever had, is when they finally threw in the towel and said, okay, I'm gonna open up my own practice because I'm so miserable. I'm so miserable, I'm going to either quit dentistry or become unemployed or whatever. And then they start their own practice, and it's great because remember who was the British Empire. I mean, a lot of these places, one of the big war strategies is when they pulled up to invade a place, the captain would burn all the ships. Because he knew once the war broke out, at least half the team, I would have never lifted the ship. I would have been there, drinking out of the barrel of booze right when they left. But they would burn the ships. And I think these dentists, a lot of them won't open up their own office till they're so damn miserable that they don't even care if they go bankrupt. Having their office go under and go bankrupt, that at this point, they don't even care. Those are the best ones.
So the biggest tragedy there, though, is that more than anything, it hurts the patient, because if you're going to a DSO and the doctor that you're used to getting just keeps cycling through because they can only keep someone for a year, at the end of the day, it's the patient that suffers. So it's like, what's best for delivering great care to patients? I don't feel like it is necessarily that model of high turnover. I feel like when a dentist owns their own practice, they bring a different level of everything, like passion, enjoyment, excellence. And that's where like Zana was created so that we could elevate solo practitioners and small group practices so they could almost have DSO level tools and tactics, because you can't just keep doing business as usual if you want to survive against companies that have Fortune 100 executives leading them, that have, access to top agencies. They have $1 million ad spend. Like, how are you going to compete with that? You have to elevate your game. And that's why we created Zana.
And where does it, I mean, you got a thing, Zana, God is gracious. The name Zana means God is gracious, of Slavic origin. Are you Slavic? Is that where you got that name?
No. I It's funny. It was in a little meeting with my wife, and we were trying to come up with a name that was short. And I think it sounds like it's Sana. I think it's like toothbrush in German or something like that. I should actually fact check with her, but it was something just about the way it sounded, not actually the meaning of the word. So if that's true, that would be crazy because actually my name Shawn, I think, means God is gracious. So that'd be a perfect fit. But no, I actually didn't know that. So I'd be
In
curious where you found.
Hebrew, it means rose. In Greek, it means rose, and it means God is great. But it doesn't say. Um, in Slavic, it's God is gracious. So, but right now it means Zana means it removes plaque. So what your business model? What did it bring to dentistry? Why did you you're a smart guy. You've been in the biz a long time. What was the unique selling proposition that made you and your wife get excited about this?
Well, so I'm kind of more of, I would say, co-founder. Like I've run with this, but my father was right there at the start, and he's just, again, an ideas guy. So we're kind of noticing a lot of observations in the market. And first, that competition was crazy because of DSOs. So solo practitioners were needing almost like a partner that they could rely on because it's so crazy. I don't understand why, but dentists often look at like Sonicare and Oral-B and the arrangements that they have with them to be able to offer their toothbrushes to patients as like a partnership. But if you look at a partnership is where you have some value that you can offer that's unique and the end user can't get it somewhere else. But we all know that if a patient goes into Costco or Amazon, not goes in, but shops on Amazon, they can get an electric toothbrush cheaper than any deal that they can get in a dental office. So, I mean, there's nothing worse than when all of a sudden your patient hears, oh, hey, here's a great deal on a Sonicare. We think you should get it. They walk out, and then all of a sudden over the weekend, they're at Costco, and they're like, man, I could have got two for that price. Because then it makes them second guess the value that they're getting in the practice in other areas. And you never want that. So, first of all, I always wonder why there's such a loyalty to these big brands because I don't want to talk bad about them. I think they're great brushes. So we noticed that there's not real true partners that are helping dentists in that regard. B, that competition was going crazy. And 3, replacement head costs are through the roof. And it doesn't really make sense unless you look at like the HP ink strategy, where it's like we sell them a cheap printer and then we screw them on ink. It's kind of the same thing. Like we've been manufacturing toothbrushes for over 20 years, and there's nothing about the manufacturing process that necessitates a $16 replacement head. Like it's outrageous. So we saw an opportunity to come alongside and partner with dentists and actually get their brand. So we imprint on our Z Sonics. And we realized the biggest pain point for patients is buying replacement heads. So we give them to the dentist for free to give to the patient for free for life, as long as that patient's coming in for routine appointments.
And how long? I mean, it's a great idea. Free toothbrush heads for the patient. How long have you been doing this? Is this a new experiment? How long is it going?
No, it's taken on different forms, but I would say it's been about 18 months in. We have dental offices all over the nation using it right now. And it's funny because in the beginning, they're like, well, I love my Sonicare or I love my Oral-B. I'm not so sure about the brush, And we're like, okay, try it. So they try it and they absolutely love it. So it compares to like the Diamond Clean Sonicare, which is like retails like $220, $250. But instead of just a sonic brush being a sonic brush, we wanted to make it a tool that helps the patient, helps the practice, and helps the dentist. So instead of them buying it from us for $200, when they're in your practice, they can get it for $100, and they can't get it anywhere else. We're not at retail. We don't want to be at retail. So the fact that we can pass on a 50% savings to your patient just because they're in your practice, that's where we're really aligning ourselves as partners to these dentists.
And who's making your electric toothbrush?
We have our own suppliers in China. We've been, working with the, Chinese suppliers for, maybe like 12 years now. And before people start saying anything about the quality in China, it's like if you look on the back of your iPhone, it says assembled in China, which is just kind of like a really clever way of saying it's not manufactured there, but it is. It's just designed by Apple in California, but it's manufactured in China.
I've been the keynote speaker in China before. I mean, I've In fact, when this whole virus thing broke out, I mean, I've had lunch with the dean of the dental school of Wuhan, the Wuhan School of Dentistry, the president. They're the nicest people. It's kind of funny how for 5,000 years everyone called them the sleeping bear because they never bothered their neighbors. I mean, when I look at like the 20, if I took the top 100 dentists that I've met that I've just really enjoyed, 10 of them are over there. They're just the nicest people. Gosh, they're nice. They're always smiling. They're always working. They love to work. They just, I mean, I can't say enough good things about them. By the way, on Dental Town, I looked it up because I thought, well, because we just found out that it means Slavic. So I looked up Zanna because there's a guy on Dental Town, Zana, but he's from Kurdistan. So there went my Slavic theory.
Okay.
But I love entrepreneurialism. So you said you've been doing it for 18 months. You're in a lot of offices already. How did you get that message out? How did you find these offices? Was it direct mail? Was it from your days at Z Dental? Was it how have you been getting the word out, and what is making them want to do it? I mean, the old school way, purchase inventory, Zana way, free inventory. And the old way is their branding, and your way, you're doing the office imprint for it's the office branding. The old way is more expensive. Your way, you got them a better deal. How have you been getting the word out, and how you been getting this success going?
I think a lot of it's been word of mouth. Early on, I was in some groups with Brady Frank, and love what he's doing to really help the DDSO and, help solo docs kind of survive and thrive. And then after that, just some connections like John Nosty, one of the primary or a main contributor on Dental Town, has been enrolled. So just them telling their friends and saying, hey, you got to check it out. And for the longest time, it was in beta just because, as all entrepreneurs know, it's like we spent like 20 to 30,000 developing software before we had to pivot and go to a different platform, and still just learning the ins and outs of how to bootstrap to get a business launched instead of taking on debt and giving away equity. But we just kind of hustle and get our name out there. But we really haven't done any crazy things like going even to trade shows. We're really kind of just ramping up right now.
So now, was it scary using a name Z Sonic Pro? Were you worried? I mean, the name Sonic that's used in toothbrushes out there, was that a ballsy move, or did you hear from any lawyers on that one, or?
No. I mean, just the parent company, Z Dental. So it's like even that might have been kind of the same exact thing. Like our last name starts with a Z, so it really wasn't super thought out. It was like, well, Z Dental offers a Z Sonic. So, and I feel really bad because I would have sent you one ahead of time, but we just thought about it today. So I will actually send you your own Z Sonic Pro so you can check it out.
My God, you just saw live the bribe of getting on the Dentistry Uncensored show, even though it was a late bribe. So how long do heads last? I mean, does a athletic guy like you use it harder than, say, a 50-year-old woman?
That's a great question. I know you're not supposed to use a lot of force when you're brushing with a sonic or electric toothbrush because the sonic vibrations do that's where the kind of efficacy is. But I would say just the general rule is still what the ADA said a while ago, is every 3 months replace your brush heads. And a hygienist could tell you more, but there's actually like the end rounding starts breaking down on the end of a bristle if you go beyond that. So imagine having non-end rounded kind of jagged bristles that now have sonic power behind them. Not a good thing for your gums. So yeah, we'd recommend, I mean, it's no longer painful to get replacement heads because you just kind of go back in for your hygiene appointment and you get two free. So one for every 3 months if you come in every 6 months for your hygiene. So it's almost like $25 of value that you're giving to your patient every time they come in.
Now, I want to know if you gave me that and I gave it to my girlfriend and she dropped it in the bathtub, would it work, or is it not strong enough?
No, it's pretty resilient, and we actually have like
that was a joke. Get it? The toaster in the bathtub be electrocuted. Will it electrocute her to death if she drops it in the bathtub while brushing?
Thankfully, no.
Then I don't want it. Just keep it. Save the postage. That was the only idea I had. No, but what I thought Waterpick did great this year is listening to patients for 32 years. The reason no one likes a Waterpick is because it makes a damn mess. And a lot of the guys don't get it because they leave their clothes on the floor and they're all that. But when Waterpick made their deal finally portable, so you could bring it into the shower, and I didn't even get it because you know what I figured out with my 4 boys a gazillion years ago was we got the shower floss where you unscrew have you ever heard of that? You unscrew the shower head and you put this device in there, and then it has 4 tubes going down. So, and it was one for each one of the boys, and that was a great thing. And because when you're water flossing in the shower, you don't care if the mess you make. You're in the shower.
Independently, each boy would use it.
Yeah, I had 4 deals for the boys, and when they were little, long cords, so they could be 2 feet tall, and they loved it, and they'd have water fights in there and stuff like that, but it worked. But it's all about making a mess. So taking an electric toothbrush with you into the shower. Like when I take a shower, I do everything in the shower. I brush my teeth, I floss my teeth, I shave, I pee, I do everything in there, and that's the key. And also for the brushing 2 minutes, what I've had the most success was is 2 minutes is a long time. So I tell people, well, make it part of your routine. Like when you start electric brushing your teeth, that's the time to maybe go pick out your socks, underwear, your uniform for the day, do something else. Maybe that's the time you walk down to the kitchen and turn on the coffee pot or do this. But when you start brushing, you're not going to stand there for 2 minutes unless you don't have a life and you're busy. So go do something that takes 2 minutes and learn that routine. And that's what I do. Like when I get in the shower, the first thing I do is brush my teeth because that's, the water's warming up. You're trying to wake up. But trying to get them just to use it. And by the way, you don't need any toothpaste. If you look at the research, dry brushing, you need straight bristles. That's why changing the heads regularly is everything. And out of all the homes I've been in my life, I've never seen one toothbrush that's still working. Anytime you're at a friend's house, you always go to you have to use the restroom, and there's their toothbrushes, and they got 5 of them, and they all look like they were parked under a tire. The bristles are all straight out, and they couldn't work if they had to work. And when you've been a dentist for all these years, you've looked at all the deal. It's dry brushing. The bristle has to be straight, and it's trying to pry off the plaque, and it takes 2 minutes to do this. And so then you go to someone's house and all the bristles are irregular and flat. And I'm talking just across the board. You'll never see a functional working toothbrush. And so as dentists, we're not explaining that message. So explaining the value added of what you're doing, the most important part of this whole thing that you're doing is giving them new heads, free toothbrush heads for patients for life, because your patients have to realize that it's not the toothbrush, it's dry brushing, it takes 2 minutes, and that's with perfect heads. So if you got old, flat, curly heads, this isn't working, and that's our fault. We have not got the message out. They believe that it's Crest with, MFP, maximum fluoride, all that stuff. No. It's just 2 minutes of straight bristles.
Well, I think a lot of people always think of like how much it costs to get an electric toothbrush, but they don't ever think of how much it costs to maintain one. And that's the thing. It's like if you're getting 4 brush heads every year because you should be replacing them every 3 months, over a 5 to 7 year period, it's like $250. And that's a lot of money that an office is getting to provide. So the actual care program in the office that the patient, instead of them buying a Z-Sonic, they just enroll in a care program called Care Beyond the Chair, which is just a way for you to say, hey, look, you're part of our family, so we're going to extend our care to you beyond the chair by getting you, when you enroll for $99.95, you get a Z-Sonic and free replacement heads for life. And the cool thing is we decided to make it a win for the practice. Originally, we'd set it up so they get commissions, but we've temporarily suspended that just because of the pandemic. And now every time a patient joins Care Beyond the Chair in their practice, they get like $40 worth of credits for PPE. So they can end up getting free PPE, like 3-ply masks, KN95 masks, instant infrared thermometers. And that's just because we're a company that's agile and we listen to what's going on. So we decided to right off the bat see if we could start supplying these things because it's what people need.
So Care Beyond the Chair.
Care Beyond the Chair.
I love that, man. That is really nice, and it even rhymes. I mean that is great. So who is your product champion the most? Is it hygienist? Is it young entrepreneur dentist? Who is biting on this first?
I think it's a mix. Like at the very beginning, it was hygienists, because there's kind of a similar business model to ours that's already in the industry. And I don't want to talk about that.
Oh, no, at least you got to say what it is. or here, text me. Just text me. Then I'll read it on the air for you. Just send me.
This is uncensored, right?
It is Dentistry Uncensored, and trust me, no one's listening.
Well, so there's Burst, and it's this guy Himesh, and props to him and his team there, and what they've done with a really beautiful brush, a great design and everything like that. But I just feel like it doesn't actually help out the practice. It kind of empowers hygienists to almost do this rogue side hustle in the practice to just sell to consumers, but it doesn't build the brand of the practice, and it doesn't get the patients coming back to the practice. So that's kind of where we don't create or innovate anything unless we realize there's a problem. And that's where sometimes the dentists don't get it. They're like, wait a second. So I don't have to have inventory. I can put my name on it. It really doesn't cost me anything because they're not selling them. Patients are buying them on our portal. So we're getting the $99.95. We're just shipping 6 imprinted brushes at all times to the practice, and they're just offering this care program to their patients and getting the benefits of increased patient retention, patient engagement, just for enrolling those patients. So, I mean, it's kind of simple, but I would say some entrepreneurial dentists have been some of the starters, but also hygienists, because hygienists love the free replacement heads to their patients because it helps it helps reduce missed appointments, and no hygienist likes having to get on the phone and fill a slot that went empty because a patient no-showed.
I really want to retweet this Twitter, but I was too nice of a guy. But it's Dentistry Uncensored we're talking about. But there's a guy in England. He's an MD, and he wrote an article on Twitter saying, anyway, that he doesn't like doctors doing commercials. He just doesn't like it. And he wrote, I posted about Sensodyne Dentist a few years ago. Same ad format all over the world. Attractive young dentists, maybe with Instagram accounts, in their work clothes and clinical settings, promoting a toothpaste and regurgitating marketing claims when the public thinks they are facts. And of course, it's 4 girls. They're all beautiful. Let's see, they're from Connecticut, Essex, New Jersey, UK. Should I retweet that just to see just to stir up a bunch of trouble?
Yeah, I mean,
should I?
You gotta live dangerous.
You gotta live dangerous.
That's the thing with dentists. Sometimes gets me. It's like they live in these comfortable, let's kind of just herd mentality, do what everyone else is doing, but typically that's not remarkable. And that's what I like about your podcast and a lot of the other people that are speaking up. It's like challenging dentists to kind of get out of the shell.
Well, I just retweeted it to just oh my gosh, how many do I even have now? I have where's my anyway, I'll see I'm in trouble. That's 26,000. So you got to chime in and say we were talking about this on the show, or people are going to say, what the hell did he do that for? But yeah, it's So what I'm saying is it's kind of a controversial deal if a doctor is recommending something. And it's tough because dentistry is a completely preventable disease. And it's preventable not because of a vaccine. It's preventable. It's a behavior. You either don't eat sugar and don't drink sugar, or you brush your teeth for 2 minutes. It's really about being a coach, motivating them to want to save their teeth. I mean, that's what life is. You have these little kids, and you try to win them over with positive behaviors, like let's brush our teeth every morning instead of waking up and having a cigar and a dry martini. These are just better life coping skills
Yeah.
to do that. So, what do you think of his critique on all these Sensodyne commercials?
I think dentists need to be savvier. And I don't think it's a bad thing if a dentist steps up and tries to make some bold moves. I think at the end of the day, dentistry is going to win. Your competition is going to make these great partnerships with the big companies and get great deals and great specials that you playing on the sideline and saying that it's not the right thing to do, I don't think really helps dentistry out.
And you've been in dentistry a long time, and we're 3 months into a pandemic. How does your business benefit from the pandemic? Is it hurt by the pandemic? Does it change anything? Does it not change anything? And by the way, this pandemic in America, it really hit, in March, and it's just June. I mean, we're only 3 months into an 18-month-long pandemic. So how does the first 3 months affect Zanna so far?
Well, I would say because we serve dentists and dentists just got knocked off their horse, it hurts in a general sense. I think the timing is more important now ever that for dentists to actually start putting the business cap on and cutting expenses and thinking about how to really solidify their patient base. So I think the answer that Zana is actually more appropriate now because it doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to buy huge inventories up front. They're getting their name out there. They're staying in front of their patient. But yeah, I mean, we're agile. So right off the bat, we just tried to see how we could start helping dentistry out by bringing in some PPE and landed some pretty good deals there. So we kind of just roll with it. I think times like this where there's shakings is really, really good for businesses that are ready to make bold moves. And we hope to be in a position to do that.
So they go to your website, myzana.com, myzana.com, and they're going to say, oh, there's Allison right there, and Walter Krasowski. I just know him as the coach. How do you even say his last name? Walter Kost?
Coach K, yeah. Love that.
I just know him, Coach K or Walter. Love that guy. How did you meet Walter?
I met him through a cruise for Brady Frank's thing, which is ironic because I actually didn't meet him on the cruise, but I met him afterwards. It was just in one of these Zoom meetings, and Brady was just telling people about my program, and being entrepreneurial minded like Coach K is, he reached out and he's like, Shawn, this is awesome. So he's a great guy. I think he stands for everything that's great about dentistry.
Yeah, and a great person, too. A great guy, a great person, just amazing. Now, are you on your social media play? Is it big on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or any of those bigger than other ones?
I would say we're active on Facebook and Instagram, and that's where we're kind of getting some traction.
And more Facebook or more Instagram? Because those are two different beasts.
That's a great question. I would say our ads, maybe we're getting more engagement on Instagram, we're noticing, but Facebook is just great for groups. I feel like that's probably where a lot of the dentists hang out, is just in groups. So organically, when people share, that really seems to get a lot of traction. But right now, we're kind of in that place where we're just again grinding and just educating people that there's a better way that can just really help out their practice.
I think I'm the only person on Facebook that at 300,000 followers, I quit.
Yeah, you don't actually have a personal account. You have a business account, don't you? I remember I tried to be friends with you.
I have Dental Town, and then I have Facebook Howard Ferran.
Okay.
But at 300,000, well, it was just the pandemic broke out. I had 300,000 followers, and anyway, it was just done. But I always did notice the people that on Facebook that engage with you were a generation older than the Instagram. It's like the Instagram were the dental students, and the Facebook was the Viagra Cialis crowd. I mean, it was two different places, and I think the research is clear that when kids find out their parents are on the same social media platform, they just jump. I mean, no one's going to be cool on the same platform as your grandma and grandpa or your parents. So I was wondering if you were getting more traction from younger people on Instagram or older dentists, getting their diabetes medication on Facebook.
Yeah, I'd probably say again Instagram and then the Facebook groups. But are you on TikTok, Howard? Because if so, I want to
No,
follow.
I'm not on TikTok because it's so hard to get good information, and America's saying, well, it's owned by China. And my first question is, okay, well, you're America and you've been at war every year since 1776, except for 20 years. So, I mean, in my lifetime, I mean, it's been Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq. When Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize, and during his entire presidency, we had declared war on no one, but we were bombing and shooting people in 7 different countries, 7 days a week, for 8 years, and that's when you give the president of the United States the Nobel Peace Prize. You're like, well, at least they're not nuking anybody, or they're not, they're just drone killing people. I mean, so TikTok is owned by China, and so there's a lot of concern about that. Is that spying? Is that spyware? But it's like, God, the most successful spyware company in the world is the CIA and the NSA. So it's hard to tell. But I have not gone TikTok, but I like what they're doing, and that is like on Instagram. If you had a 5K for oral cancer, and you set up a 5K in Chandler, and everybody meet at the park on Saturday, and and you had a link to your site about it. Well, the link's not going to work on Instagram. Do any of the links work on Instagram? Do they?
Yeah.
No, and you can't save the video. You show, but TikTok, I love it because you can save the video to your own phone. Like if I want to send something I see on Instagram to a friend of mine, well, they have to be on Instagram. I can't share. So
Yeah.
I like everything they're doing on TikTok, and it's growing fast. I mean, in just 1 year, it's already bigger than like Reddit and several other ones and Twitter combined. It's bigger than Reddit plus Twitter.
I didn't know.
And then if you look at it's beating Instagram for the age groups of think like 15 to 20, the prime young kids.
Yeah.
And I asked them why, and they say, well, if you see a cool video, you can save it to your phone, and then I can text it to Grandma Colleen. But Grandma Colleen's not going to get an Instagram account or a TikTok, blah. So I think that they're doing it the old-fashioned way. They're listening to their customers, and their customers are like, how come if I put a link for a charity or, but they're like, no, you're not leaving our platform. You are tied down. I own you. You're the product. I give you all this for free, and in exchange, I own you. Yeah. And TikTok's like, no. I mean, it's kind of like Dental Town. I mean, Dental Town, we've been out since 99, and I have 5 programmers, and since 1998, we're about a year behind on giving them the features they've asked for. I mean, every single feature they ask for, it's not a matter of if we'll give it to them. It's a matter of, well, let us get to that. Whereas the new deal in town, like Facebook and Instagram, they're just like, no, you're not leaving our site. No, you're not going to save the video to your phone. No, you're not going to, it's all control. And so are you on TikTok? I mean, is that why are you on it? Is it working well for you?
Because that's the thing. Like if I was reaching mass market consumers selling a watch or something like that, TikTok would be great. But it's like I'm reaching dentists, and dentists at the age of 15 or 20 are not practicing. They're not dentists yet. So is it going to become something that maybe the younger generation is on? I don't know, but I don't think my market is on TikTok right now. But so Howard, with this pandemic, you wrote an article in Dental Town about how it's 30 to 50% of what last year's production is what the new normal could be. And at the same exact time, you're saying some DSOs could get hit. Who do you think is going to get hit harder, the solo practices or the DSOs?
Well, I'm trying to find I saw, where did I see that article? Oh, yeah, there's it was on OrthoTown. Sorry, you can't go to OrthoTown unless you're a dentist. But what's TikTok and Can It Grow Your Practice by Dr. Grant Collins? And this guy is just crushing it on TikTok. He's on, oh my gosh, he's got all these videos. But see, that's what I like about his videos. On TikTok, he's the braces guy. And I mean, he's just crushing it. And
it's because people that need braces are right in that demographic of TikTok users. That's genius.
But he can save those videos, put them on his website, send them out in an email. He can do all those things which you could never do and still can't do on Facebook or Instagram. They're all about control, and TikTok's about giving it all away. And of course, then Zuckerberg goes all the way to Europe to tell the European commissioners, you better look into that TikTok. They might be spying or something. And it's like, yeah. And who are you again? I mean, unbelievable. But I'm sorry. So I was talking about TikTok, but what did you just ask?
Who do you think is going to get hit harder by the pandemic in this kind of new era? Is it, you think it's going to be solo docs or the DSOs?
I think the solo docs have been shrinking every year since I've been a dentist in 1987. And as it gets more competitive and marketing gets more sophisticated and it gets more competitive and more competitive, the DSOs are not only have they been winning for the whole 30 years I've been a dentist, I think they're winning faster. And a lot of the wins are behind the scenes that you don't see. Like they get group purchases on lab and supplies, and that helps. But then they go and they get higher rates of pay for the dental insurance. And man, when they can go in there and command more money for insurance reimbursement, that is a competitive advantage. Now the uncompetitive advantage is, I've always said that on a DSO, when I go into any town that's like 250,000 people, and there's a dentist there, and after 10 years of getting their prototype down, they say, you know what? It would just be easier if I, instead of being on the south side, if I also had one on the north, east, west, and I could scale, so I could bring in one layer of management that could focus on marketing, accounting, HR, like 3 people that can just work on the business of marketing, finance, HR, people, time, and money. They make the most money. I mean, every time I know a dentist who's netting $1 million a year, they have one flat organization. They have 4 or 5 offices. They're in small towns and they own it. But then later, his exit strategy will be to a big DSO and they'll buy it. But now the headquarter, they need 17% off the top. Well, hell, your lab and supplies combined aren't even 17%.
Right.
So to make that up, they've got to go get bigger insurance reimbursement. I mean, all kinds of things. But I don't believe in any of the business models yet because they've been funded by a ton of cheap private equity money, because Alan Greenspan's best idea after the 2000 Y2K collapse was just to set the cost of money to zero and leave it there for a couple of decades. And we've been adding $1 trillion of debt for 19 years, and Americans, they don't even see it. And then we had the pandemic, and the United States printed 4 trillion pieces of paper in the month of March. And that's why the stock market's booming and all that, because that money's all going to end up at the end of the day. It's all going to end somewhere, and it goes into these markets. But it's the question is that going to be inflationary? So none of these DSOs could go public. I mean, and I'm on LinkedIn. I have 40-some thousand followers on LinkedIn, and those are a lot of the business people. And for years, I've been having Wall Street people send me deals saying, I don't get it. I just got this deal. What you make, and we talk, and it's like, man, that is a high overhead. I mean, imagine going on Shark Tank, and they go to Shark Tank, and you say, I want $1 million, and they say, well, what are you gonna do? And they say, well, I'm gonna go buy this practice in Chandler. And Mr. Wonderful says, well, how do I get my money back? Oh, well, next week I want another $1 million bucks, and I'm going to go buy an office in Glendale. And then next week I want another $1 million. I'm going to buy one in Mason. And he's like, well, when do I get my money back?
I get paid.
Oh, well, you don't ever get your money back. I just keep growing. And now I'm at $1 billion in sales. Aren't you really impressed? I grew a $1 billion company. They're like, dude, you have $1 billion in debt.
Yeah, totally.
So it's smoke and mirrors, and they can't go public. So think of all the what's that crazy app that went public on NASDAQ? What was the one where you send a picture and it disappears?
Snapchat.
Yeah, Snapchat. Here's Snapchat, which design was to send a nudie that they could look at one time and it disappears. That can go public. But a dental office can't go public. I mean, society doesn't need a high tech. Well, besides Anthony Weiner, I mean, he had to have Twitter. I mean, that was how would you like to? How would you like to? You could have been the mayor of New York City if they never would have invented Twitter. That makes me think of how many new technologies, when they come out, will make more politicians step down for things we never even thought of. But the bottom line is, I don't believe the business model. The only business models I believe in the DSO world are the two in Australia that are publicly traded, 300 Smiles and Pacific Dental, and then the one in Singapore, Q&M. I mean, those are viable business models. They all have the same business model. They're open 7 to 7, 7 days a week. They don't have any hygienists. And a lot of hygienists think it's because they don't want to pay him $40 an hour. And that's not why they do it. They do it because when the dentist does the cleaning, every time they see the patient and do their own cleaning, they get a new patient exam worth of dentistry being done. And right. then when they come back every 6 months and the hygienist does the cleaning and they blow in for a 3-minute hygiene exam real quick, you never convert the patient to get anything done. So they took out the hygienist just because if this dentist is in there, it'll make them get an assistant to clean up the room, seat the patient, take the x-rays, doc go in there and scale and measure the gums. But it'll keep them in the room for about 15 minutes. And if they can keep the doc in the room for 15 minutes, the patient will convert and say, yeah, I need to get those 4 cavities filled. And that's what you're in the business. You're trying to get this person to convert to an electric toothbrush because, if they can just use a toothbrush but start brushing with the different hand. Because when they go in there with the regular hand, it's just a reflex. But if you can get them to change hands, they have to think about what they're doing and get on sides. But if you can just change their behavior for 2 minutes a day, it will change their disease missing and filled tooth rate. You can measure that. The question is, how do you get complicated human beings to change their mind and do something? And so DSOs are still to be decided. They're massively growing in popularity, but a lot of that is with cheap money, and we'll see what the staying power is at. And my biggest red flags are NASDAQ doesn't want to touch them, and their dentists all want to quit.
Right.
I mean, the turnover. Almost every email I get, like today, the emails I got between the first, second podcast are dentists at a DSO listening to my podcast, just trying to get out, So until you have a happy dentist that can attract and retain a happy staff, that can attract and retain happy patients that want to stay with you for 30 years, I don't know if you got a business model.
Well, that's why I think solo docs and small group practices still actually have a competitive advantage they can leverage if they know what to do and if they see it. Because I think culturally, think of it with restaurants. Like kind of cookie cutter restaurants like Applebee's or TGIF Fridays, like they're dying on the vine, and they have been the last 10 years. Like consumers want custom purveyors of nice items and boutique-y things, and are willing to pay for engaging with some sort of company and business that stands for something that's unique, not just the run-of-the-mill, like, oh yeah, I'm going to Applebee's and they're just, they are what they are. Like you want a unique experience. And the only like that's just set up for the solo doc to really brand themselves in a way where it's like they need to own who they are and their unique perspective on dentistry. And I feel like this next generation is poised to take the lead on that and shift the trend from this, again, DSO growth to kind of going back to these unique boutique offerings where every dentist, it's about their story, it's about their perspective, it's about their passion for dentistry. But the reason why they gave the open door, I think, for the DSOs is just because management wise, at the same exact time, you go to a restaurant and all of a sudden you get something different every single time. Like, or you order the same meal, but it's prepared differently. Like, if there's not standards and there's not good processes and there's not good business systems in place, consumers won't tolerate that. So if dentistry can, like solo docs and group practices can really elevate their business best practices and at the same exact time shine forth with their own brand, I think they've got a fighting chance to really, I guess, change the trend.
Well, it was like, a little kid, we only had 3 stations. And when I would walk home from school, Blessed Sacrament, it was 8 blocks away. And we got out of school at 3:30 and Batman was on at 4. And I'd start to get scared like the last 2 blocks and like sprint home the last 2 because you didn't want to miss.
Yeah.
That was all you had. You didn't have an iPhone and 24-hour-a-day YouTube. And it was, Batman every day, 4 o'clock, KAKE, Channel 10, the same bat station at the same bat time, at the same bat channel. Friends, you want to go where everybody knows your name. And then you walk into any of these DSOs. Oh, is my doctor there? Oh, he quit. And but that's okay. And what's also amazing, because all these DSO owners, I know them. They're all on my phone. But like whenever they actually quit, what's even more worse than that is they'll tell me, they say, well, I had this really big case and I was going to be placing my first, my implant. I got all ready and I did all these webinars. I go in there and my assistant who's been with me for 4 months, she quit. And it's like, and I had a rule. I had the same assistant for 30 years. And I used to tell Jan, if you're going to call in sick, call me first. Because because what they're going to do is they're going to call a temp, and I don't want to work. I just don't want to work today with some lady I met 5 minutes ago. I mean, that just doesn't sound like a fun day. And right. So if you can't, I think that's the common deal. You know why you need new patients? Because you always have all these new staff. And when you look at the math, I mean, yeah, let's say that 10% of Americans flip their home every year and move. Let's just say that's pretty much true for Phoenix and LA. I don't know how true it is for Wichita, Kansas, but I know the market out here, and 10% of the houses flip every year. So, in 10 years, theoretically, all your patients could have moved out. But in a highly transient society, you gotta slow down the turnover of your hygienist, the people answering the phone, the receptionist. When you talk about something unique, the most unique thing about a restaurant is the owner. I mean, I eat at the same places where the owner will come out and bring you a shot or knows your appetizer or whatever. And it's been interesting in Ahwatukee. I mean, there's only been a couple of restaurants that have been there as long as I have. The other ones, like you say, they're burning and churning. What do you share with the dentists? I mean, you're in touch with a lot of dentists. You're seeing this industry at 30,000 feet. The guy listening to you right now, or the lady listening to you right now, she doesn't get to see all these practices. What are you seeing that causes success that she should be doing more?
Just permission to take time on really getting your message and really just being okay with who you are as a dentist, reconnecting with your passion and understanding that if you don't brand yourself, trying to be something that you're not is never a good strategy for sustainable success in anything. In a relationship, if you attract someone by some performance metrics and try to really get their attention, well, if that's what they fall in love with, you're going to have to keep doing that the whole relationship. And that's not a good strategy. So I think dentists just need permission to pioneer and to not be afraid to be themselves. Maybe they have certain dreams of well, what if I could combine more of a spa-like feel? And I really love the, makeup artist down the street, and maybe we could have a collaborative. It's don't be afraid to try these things out, because innovation and creating things that are remarkable is what's going to win today. Playing it safe and waiting till someone else steps up because we're not really sure. I get that. entrepreneurs are even afraid to make mistakes because you could look like a fool. But it's like, don't be afraid to fail and fail fast. You just got to get out there, do something, you'll learn. But patients need connection, and it's hard to connect when you're faking it. You can't fake authenticity. So that's why we started The Authentic Dentist. It's this call to like discovering who you are as an authentic dentist, because that's your greatest that's your greatest, chance for success in this new era, and aligning yourself with partners like us at Zana, where we're just trying to help give you a first-rate tool that maybe only like a DSO has access to. A DSO could get imprinted brushes because of economies of scale. You try to get imprinted brushes, you can't do it, but with us you can. So you just have to be more strategic, elevate your game, but also just not be afraid to be you and discover kind of really what your passion is for dentistry. Because if you don't discover that, I don't think you're going to make it.
Now, if I go to theauthenticdentist.com, if I go to theauthenticdentist.com, it says press allow to verify that you're not a robot. Delivery not for me. Best. Is that your website?
You know what? That is a great question. Allison and I, we're kind of focused on our podcast right now, but our web presence, like, we're not doing any advertising or anything. So
because it forwards over to delivery not for me. Best, and it looks it looks suspicious. So when you say The Authentic Dentist, you're talking about just the podcast, not the website. You're talking about going to podcast.apple.com, The Authentic Dentist. But you're not talking about going to the website, theauthenticdentist.com, are you?
That's a great question. I'm trying to pull it up right now to see. I mean, yeah, if they want to, we're not really doing anything with the website right now. So if they want to check out what we're doing, it would definitely be.
Did you go to theauthenticdentist.com? Did you type that in?
Yeah, nothing's even pulling up for me. So.
Huh.
Yeah.
That is so yeah, that is so what was the so
but
talk
podcast,
about
check out our podcast.
Yeah, so what were you and Allison doing to come up with The Authentic Dentist? And I love the authenticity. That's why I named mine Dentistry Uncensored, because if I'm authentic, I'm going to talk to you like you're sitting in my house and we're having a beer and eating chips, and I'm not going to be politically correct. I don't believe in it because it's faking it. I mean, when I'm talking to you, I hope we love and respect each other enough that you tell me the truth. I wouldn't want you sitting there telling me what you thought I wanted to hear. I love your name, The Authentic Dentist. So what were you and Allison wanting to get authentic about?
Again, it's like she loves dentistry, and I want dentistry as it is now to not just, again, to survive, but to thrive. And let's face it, like the second I understood exactly what a dentist has to do, like today, it's crazy. Like, aside from what you have, and continuing education on what like the fact that you're not just a clinician, but you're like a surgeon. And at the same exact time, I get to go to business conferences. I get to read business books. I read Harvard Business Review. I'm learning business models, business best practices. You don't have a chance to do that right now because you are in the midst of this chaotic, crazy, fast-paced machine that is running, and you try to keep up with it, and you're trying to keep up with your continuing education. So we created The Authentic Dentist just to be real about the challenges in dentistry, real talk. Allison, she can't help but just being inspiring. She's just one of the most inspiring people I know. And I know if I was a young dentist starting off right now, I would want to just kind of like almost like sit at her feet and just let her mentor me in the ways that she even thinks. How does she handle it when a patient doesn't like her dentistry and she thought she did a great job? How did she handle it when all of a sudden, her team is just kind of unraveling or there's some drama? It's like she has learned so much and just has so much wisdom and inspiration that all we really want to do is just help set up the next generation for success in dentistry by giving them permission to be authentic.
Transferring knowledge.
Yeah.
From the old to the young, from one country to another. I think I still am on the record that when Jobs plugged in the internet to the cell phone, I mean, everybody had a Motorola and everybody had a Nokia, and Jobs, and everybody did not want Jobs to go into it. I mean, I lived through that whole deal. And in 2007, he said, no, Apple's coming out with a phone and we're plugging in the internet to it. And, it's like anything. It's like, it's like, he stood on the shoulders of a lot of great other technologies, just one more deal. But I thought that was the individuals landing on the moon. I mean, the country landed on the moon in 69, but that was the United States of America. It was a military operation, blah, blah, blah. It was always about the surface. But this was the birth of the individual, because now the individual has all information, all platforms, everything in their own hand. And then you can start a podcast or a YouTube video and transfer that knowledge directly to them. And I think that was the birth of the individual. And I think 100 years from 2007 to 2107 is going to be humanity's greatest. I mean, imagine if during the Vietnam War, could you imagine? I mean, when you're thinking about all the events right now, we've had the pandemic, we've had the economic collapse, we've had all the racial tensions. Could you imagine if the 10-year Vietnam War, everybody had an iPhone and that was making the news? Could you imagine? I mean, it's going to change everything. I mean, everything is transparent. Everything is visible. It is what it is. So what are you going to do about it? And I'm excited about all the like when people are talking about the racial tension in the street. You know what would really bother me? If everything going on wasn't bothering anybody. If there was no one in the streets. Yeah. Everybody's like, oh, what are you going to do? It's like, no, this is all good. This is all in your face. It's totally transparent. Knowledge is moving at the speed of light. It literally is moving 300 kilometers a second. I just think what you're doing is amazing. I can't believe we already went an hour. I want you to share one thing. You lost your mother recently. What life lesson, because now you have 5 kids.
Well, I mean, I don't have 5 kids since I lost her, but yes.
But you have 5 kids. But what was the life lesson going from, because now you're next up, it's the grandparents, the parents, you, the 5 kids. What was the takeaway life lesson of all that pain and suffering? What did you learn from that?
So during her 4-year battle with lymphoma, and then it, ending as tragic as it did, I think the biggest life lesson was that there really isn't guarantees. And at the end of the day, I didn't regret anything but the time I didn't spend with her. She'd be at the office, and one of the greatest things is when she'd just come in and she'd just like put her hand on my shoulder and be like, hey, how are you? And just like, she brought so much life. But there's so many times she'd be like, hey, you want to take a quick lunch and get some boba? And I'd be like, I'm in the middle of something. I can't right now. And it's like, it's the humanity, it's the connection, it's relationships, it's love that is what everything's about. Not just efficiency and getting things done in the short term, And so I guess just what I would say is, I appreciate now those in my life even more, because I never knew something like that could happen or was going to happen. And like I told you earlier, I use the pain of that event to inspire me to try to make a bigger difference and keep trying to make her proud.
That is so cool. I love to hear stories of my own staff with Dental Town, and I'll say, well, how do you like working from home? Well, my children, they keep interrupting me. And I'm like, and that's a good thing, because at work, they couldn't interrupt you. Isn't it really cool when your little kid can walk up and interrupt you? I mean, that's like the best thing ever. And,
the interruption. Amen. Yeah. A good word.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to rethink. I mean, you got up, you showered, you took an hour to commute down to work, you had to drop your kids off all these places and all this chaos, and you wouldn't make it all the way back home till 6 that night. And now these people are doing it from home, and they're like, man, you got to see your kids all day long. You were interacting with hell, just your dog. What I learned most from this pandemic is how much I was really hoping the pandemic get really bad, because now more than ever, I want to eat all 4 of my dogs. I never realized how much of a problem they were. And, when you just see them in the morning and at night, your dogs are cool. But when you actually start living with them, you're like, I hope the economy goes to zero, because I just read a deal from the Great Depression from a guy in Austria. And he said that the first thing that happened during the Great Depression was all the cats disappeared. And then later it was the dogs, and that cats taste massively better than dogs. And I'm like, damn, I don't have any cats right now. And I have to wait till we get down to eating dogs. But hey, thanks for all that you do. Thank you so much. Love what you're doing. I can't say enough great things about you. It was an honor to have you come on the show, and especially to talk down to the little guys in Phoenix. Most people in Chandler and Scottsdale don't do that, but I think now that you've spent so much time with some lowlife from Phoenix, that next you should go to Globe and talk to Chris Volchek.
Okay, Volchek, I'm coming.
Is Globe rock bottom? I mean, is there anything lower than a dentist from Globe, or is Chris Volchek just like, yeah, that's me, I'm rock bottom?
I don't even know where Globe is. So for our listeners that aren't in Arizona, that says a lot.
Yeah, that says a lot. You take the 60 down. It's about an hour past Apache Junction.
Oh, okay.
On the 60. So, it was an old mining village up in the mountains.
So it's past Gold Canyon.
Oh, yeah. About an hour past Gold Canyon on the way. Kyle, is it on the way to...
Have you been to the Arboretum?
Sholo? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so shout out to Boyce Thompson. If you're in Phoenix and you haven't gone, it is a beautiful place. Check it out.
All right. Well, you have a rocking great day, and say hi to Allison for me.
Howard, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.